my street name is Mo, but you want to, I just really don't want to remember how I became homeless.
I used to be a paramedic, and I was badly injured, and a drunk driver hit my ambulance.
I'm homeless due to the economy. What's my job?
A contractor was contracted by the city of Providence, tore my house down. I was behind on my taxes, go around and confiscate property with the help of the city. Would have a list of properties that people are in the hole for taxes.
I'm standing at the site of the former Welcome Arnold shelter. On any given night, it could house 120 homeless individuals. In 2007, it was torn down to make way for a police station. The police station was never built, and the building was torn down and lost. And I believe that the reason this building was torn down was to get rid of those people from Providence, those homeless people out of Cranston.
And it was quite a distance from being centered out of needing to do things during the day in Providence area. You have to access a bus for transportation to get there, and in the same instance, when it closed up at 7 in the morning, you'd have to catch a bus then to get back out of there. Otherwise, you had like 10-15 miles of walking to do if you didn't catch a bus.
Standing at Harrington Hall, which was the site picked by the state to house the overflow from the Welcome Arnold shelter. It is also on the grounds of the prison, and I had, at the time, I did outreach to many of the men that started living in this building. It housed originally 103, 105 people, all on the floor of this cramped gymnasium, about 2 feet in between each person.
One large room, somewhere in the vicinity of about 85 people staying there on bunk beds and things. There's a lot of loudness, a lot of talking. Sometimes you have problems with drunken people coming in, and and it was just, so lack of sleep, issues to do with that they did have problems. Sometimes there was no food to be fed there, and 3 showers, and sometimes all of them weren't even operating.
I was part of an occupation. We had people from People to End Homelessness. We had some folks who were literally thrown out of the Welcome Arnolds, and they literally had no place to go. There were about 25, 30 people, mainly men, who would not have been sheltered that evening had we not been occupying the building.
I went to a protest down in front of the State House, so I had to leave these animals behind for a few hours a day. And I went down, and that's when 9/11 started. That big, I was down on the State House lawn that morning when 9/11 started. So here I got a situation here where I'm sleeping in a tent on the State House lawn with a few activists, and I got maybe 10 cats in a field that I had to go back and visit.
When you treat somebody as if they don't matter, as if they deserve all of the pain and suffering they're going through, then you may feed them and keep them out of the cold, but you destroy them at the same time. Housing First gets people in homes, and it's good for the economy, and it gets people off the streets. Everybody wins. The problem is that we don't believe somebody should get something for nothing. So instead of putting people in homes, we give it to institutions. And we end up with institutions like Crossroads.
The Crossroads, it's just as bad. Tell ya. Beat the tear to my eye just to think about that Crossroads place. Should be burnt down.
Where the CEO makes 160 grand a year, the VPs make over 100 grand a year. There's one staff person for every 3 or 4 people, but only a handful of people actually do client services.
My mother lost her welfare benefits and we were forced to seek shelter at a shelter that was really more meant for single people and not for families. And this had a real toll on my education because we had to be back at the shelter at 5 o'clock. I couldn't go out. I couldn't go anywhere after school. I was bounced around to several different school districts because really I would be very hyper when I got to school because I'd be cooped up in a room all night, and then it'd be off to school and they'd wonder why I was bouncing off the walls.
They end up with the belief that what's good for the institution is good for the client. And what I'm saying is that that's not the way it's supposed to work. It's what's good for the client, it's what's good for the human being. That's what should be good for the institution.
So I sort of fell into a pattern of staying in the temporary shelters from time to time. And past few years I was staying for 6 months on a bench down by the river, sleeping down there, staying in the library, able to take a shower in one of these church buildings that...
You spent the entire day roaming the streets, trying to stay warm, trying not to get harassed by cops, trying to find something to eat. And then you come into a crossroads and you have to go sleep on the community room floor. Filthy, smelly place. There's no cots. If there is something, it's broken. It's not a residential place. It's a room. So people fall over each other at night. People get stuff stolen. People get threatened. People get threatened with violence or actually get hurt. It's an inhumane way of treating people.
My mom was parenting in public, open to criticism from the people that were at the shelter and the shelter director. And in a way, the shelter director became the parent, and she would tell my mom how to parent right in front of me. And so the relationship between my mom and I became different because I, as a young child, saw her being disciplined by someone else. So I didn't have the security of knowing that my parents were making the right decision. The authority at the shelter becomes the parent, and it undermines the parenting skills of the parent. Really, it's hard to discipline a child in that situation. So it leads to a lot of behavioral problems and insecurity within the child.
We were told 2 years ago by the person in charge of homelessness in this state, Noreen Shawcross, that we have to get used to the idea that the state is not going to take responsibility for its homeless people anymore. She actually said this in an open meeting. And the result is what we have now. We've doubled the number of homelessness in this state in the last year. And there is no capacity, there's no place to put people. So we ended up with 10 cities. 100 people were in 10 cities this summer. And instead of finding a place for them to live for the winter, instead the state and the towns took them to court and forced them out of their tents.
Nobody came and said, well, we're going to knock your house down, we got this for you. And right now I'm sitting in a place where I've just gotten a place after a number of years. And, you sort of understand what it is to be a refugee, I guess, or a displaced person. But you get a feeling about what it's about, but I'm sure that there are much worse. People have gone through worse experiences, but even this little misery that I've gone through, that I've lived through over these years, is quite enough for anybody.